Immigration touches everything that we do, whether you know it or not. If you go to that restaurant, that food was picked by probably a farmer that came here on an H-2A visa, a temporary visa. Who's in the back cooking? Who's in the back cleaning dishes? It's most likely people that were born somewhere else. We're sitting in a building right now that was most likely built with largely immigrant labor. I think somebody made a joke before that if there were no immigrants here, how long would it take to build this house? You know, how expensive would that restaurant food be, or even the produce in the grocery store? So whether one knows it or not, immigration has affected them.
Hey, this is Chaz Roberts. I'm a personal injury lawyer. It's my passion to bring the law to the people, and that's the purpose of this podcast. You are listening to Law Have Mercy. All right, very excited about my next guest, Mr. Paul Woody Scott. He is the CEO of the Scott Law Firm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He handles immigration, criminal defense, and personal injury. What's up?
What's up, man? Really pumped to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming, man. So we call Paul Woody. I've always known him as Woody. So
yep.
What immigration? I don't know much about it. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell me what exactly that encompasses?
Immigration is a huge area of law, and people don't realize that. So in my head, I break up immigration law into business-based immigration, which is a business that needs some workers, whether that's low-skilled workers or high-skilled workers. Family-based immigration, which is like, you know, if you marry a foreign national and you want to bring her to the United States, or maybe you have a child that was born abroad, or people that are applying for citizenship. And then there's humanitarian immigration, which is probably what you hear about in the news the most. That'd be somebody coming to the U.S. seeking asylum, somebody that's fled their country because they think they're going to be persecuted in their country. There's U visas for people that have been victims of crime, and they're helping the police investigate that crime. So immigration law is huge. And as a matter of fact, most people that practice immigration law cannot or will not practice all areas of immigration law. I mean, somebody that spends their day trying to help somebody that fled, let's just say Ukraine, seeking asylum, that person is probably not the same person that's helping, Coca-Cola bring a computer programmer here, a high-skilled worker. And so because it's just such a vast area of law and the thing about immigration is very detail-oriented. One mistake on a form can tank a case. And there's a lot at stake. You know, people are moving their lives. They're picking up sometimes their families and coming to the U.S., whether that's legally or illegally. The effect's the same. They've decided to make a life change. And so there's a lot at stake. It's very detail-oriented, and it's a vast area of law.
So are your clients, are they still in their country when they contact your firm, or are they actually in the States when they contact you?
We have clients of all kinds. So we have 9 lawyers, so we're able to handle all areas of immigration law in our firm. But we do have a lot of clients that are here, came here, presented themselves maybe at the border, maybe from Honduras or Guatemala, because they are afraid of their country, or they're afraid of a group that their government can't control. So a good example of that would be people fleeing gang members in Honduras. Unfortunately, the gang situation in Honduras, they've gotten to where they're many times more powerful than the police. And so if somebody runs afoul of the gangs, they can't go to the police. Many times the police are interwoven or working with them. And so sometimes those people come to the U.S. and they'll present themselves at the border and they'd be seeking asylum. So that'd be somebody that's here. But we also have somebody, at the same day, I might have a consultation with somebody that is engaged to somebody in Peru. So in that case, the U.S. citizen is going to hire me, and we're going to do a fiancé petition to bring his fiancée from Peru. Or maybe he went to Peru and got married to her, and now he's trying to bring her here. Maybe she has children, so how do we get the children here as well? And then another example is businesses. I have a contract with LSU. LSU, the Pennington biomedical researcher, a research center, sometimes they'll send me an email and say, we want to hire this research professor who right now is at San Diego State. So we go and find out what kind of visa that research professor is on and see if we can transfer it, or do we need to apply for an H-1B for that. So in any given day, I can be talking to somebody anywhere in the world.
And so you're helping people get visas, is that temporary?
Of all kinds. I mean, some visas are temporary, and they have something called immigrant visas, which means somebody's moving here to live here. Basically, their green card. And once somebody gets a green card, that is a path to citizenship. Usually after 5 years, they can apply for citizenship. So I mentioned an H-1B visa. That's valid for 3 years. So it depends on, when somebody walks into my office or somebody calls me and they want to use my services, one of the things I'm asking them is like, what's the end goal here? Does LSU or does this business want to hire this person and this person come here for forever? Or are they hiring this person to put a, just say, I don't know, I'm trying to think. So a programming, I don't know.
A temporary,
like it's assignment. It's going to be maybe a long-term assignment. It might be to improve the efficiency. I had a factory actually in Baton Rouge, needed this guy from India to come to look at their processes and improve the efficiencies. And he's probably going to be here 2 to 3 years, and he has no intention of staying after that. Some people, they want to move here, and so it depends. That's one of the first questions that I ask the client is, what do you want? At the end of this, what is it that you want me to help you with? And we work to see if we can do that.
I'm going to ask a very stupid question.
There's no stupid questions. Maybe I should wait, though.
If I'm from a different country, right, and I wanted to come to America, how long can I be on American soil without anything? I guess, is it a passport that they need just to visit?
No, I'd actually say most people in the world have no legal or viable route to come to the United States. Like it's just not.
We have closed borders?
No. So I would say most people in the world just do not qualify for any of the visas that are available under immigration law. So I would say I was born in Honduras, but my father was a U.S. citizen. So when I was born, I was automatically a U.S. citizen. So I say this not picking on anybody from Honduras, but the vast majority of people who are born in Honduras, it's a very poor country. There's just not going to be any route to come to the United States. There's
even to visit?
You can apply, but it's going to be very hard to get that. A visitor visa, tourist visa, I mean, they have to go to an interview and prove that they will return to Honduras. And the things that they look for is, do you have a job? Do you have money? Do you have a bank account? Do you have property? Basically, do you have anything to lose if you don't go back to Honduras? So again, going back to my poor friend born in Honduras, he's just not going to have any of that. So he can apply, but he's not going to get it. The routes to come here legally is through family. So if they have some family member that's a permanent resident, which is a green card, or a U.S. citizen, that family might be able to petition for them. You can petition for a child, a spouse, a parent, if you're 21 or older. The other way to come here is through a business. I mentioned my client from India that came to improve the processes of that factory. Professors, we get hired to get H-1B professors for professors. So again, going back to my poor friend in Honduras, he's just not going to have the educational requirements for a business to bring him. So if he had some family here, that's a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, that would be his only route. Now, you were asking about people just coming here. The other route is a humanitarian route. If that person is so afraid of where they are, so afraid for their physical safety, they may come to the U.S. without a visa, and that's what I think you're hearing about more in the news is people at the southern border presenting themselves and saying, I want asylum. Asylum is protection from your country. And most of them will present themselves at the border, and they'll be detained until they do kind of a pre-check on their asylum claim. It's called a CFI, credible fear interview. If they think that there's a viable claim to asylum, they'll usually release them, and then they can go and actually apply for asylum. So that'd be a situation where somebody came here illegally, or at least without a visa. It's not illegal if you present yourself at the border and say, I want asylum. There is a process for that. But some people do cross illegally, and once you cross illegally, it's really hard to get any kind of visa. But there does exist visas. There's at the top of my head, a U visa, which is available for a victim of certain crimes that helped the police investigate that crime in some way. So they created this U visa because what was happening was maybe Hispanic neighborhoods, people knew that they didn't have bank accounts. They knew they were working for cash. They knew that they had the cash on them Friday afternoon, and they were the subject of a lot of robberies, beatings to get the money. And that person didn't want to call the police because they were afraid of their immigration status. Like, are the police going to turn me over to immigration? So they created a U visa, which is basically encourages them, if they do are a victim of a crime, a robbery, violent event, they can call the police because they know that one of the qualifications for a U visa is you have to help the police or prosecutors investigate this. So they created that police were having problems investigating crimes because they wouldn't report it. So
why is legal immigration so important?
Well, I'll just say immigration in general, but immigration touches everything that we do, whether you know it or not. If you go to that restaurant, that food was picked by probably a farmer that came here on an H-2A visa, a temporary visa. Who's in the back cooking, who's in the back cleaning dishes? It's most likely people that were born somewhere else. We're sitting in a building right now that was most likely built with largely immigrant labor. I think somebody made a joke before that if there were no immigrants here, how long would it take to build this house? How expensive would that restaurant food be, or even the produce in the grocery store? So whether one knows it or not, immigration has affected them.
How does it become such the straw man? How does it become such a bad thing? Immigration in general. I mean, that was the whole debate over the last presidential election, right? And that's what you see on different news channels, right? It's the border is failing and people are coming over in droves. Like, what can you talk about why that has become?
Yeah. Well, I'm not a politician. I'm not a policy maker, but I do know one thing is that fear sells. And when you're trying to get a job, such as the president, people being afraid helps if you're not the sitting president. And so if you start showing videos of people, crossing the border in droves, and you start creating a narrative about who these people are, which is they're coming here to steal jobs, they're coming here, they're bringing drugs, they're going to do violent things in their neighborhood. Well, that scares people. I understand. But that's not the real truth of these people. And so I think it's been a good political tool for some people, I think. And because of that, it's become a lightning rod issue. If there's any talk about increasing border security, the other side wants some concessions on, DACA, which is a big group of people, they're children that were brought here when they were a child. Maybe an amnesty for people that are here over a certain amount of years. And then if there's any talk of, creating more visas, then the border security, the other side wants, we want more border security. I think the reality is, though, if they fixed it, what are they going to talk about? So it's become a political tool, and a lot of people and immigrants are pawns in that political match.
But the reality is what you're doing is trying to help people become legal in terms of have some type of status.
That's correct.
And then they can work.
Yep.
They can pay taxes.
Yep.
They can be legitimate.
Yep.
And have very similar rights to all of us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I spend my day trying to help people come here legally. And, you mentioned so they can work. Well, of course, there's a lot of benefits to that. I mean, paying taxes and all that. But then there's kind of societal benefits too, is because people are people. People are going to have children. There's not a risk of maybe a young child coming home from school and his dad's gone. And I've had that. And that's heartbreaking. A young child that was born here, a U.S. citizen child, and their dad just didn't make it home that day, So
there's also some problems with, they may not be able to get a bank account. They may have to carry cash on them. They may have to deal with loan sharks. Like there's some bad things that come along with not being able to have the same type of freedoms, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But they're working just as hard. In fact, they're probably working harder than a lot of people because they're taking the worst jobs that no one wants, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I on a regular basis, I have business owners come into my office to talk to me because they need more workers. So, yeah, and then, like you mentioned, just carrying around cash makes you, a target. So so what we do though is we're trying to make it so this person can come here legally, or if they are here illegally, is there some kind of status that we can obtain for them? Funny story you mentioned about working. A lot of people don't realize, even if you are here illegally working without papers, being paid on cash, labor laws still apply. They can't withhold payments. If they work overtime, you have to pay the overtime rate. And I know
that's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, and it's enforced pretty seriously. And in fact, I know an attorney in Baton Rouge that kind of specializes in this, and that he will bring lawsuits against the employer that didn't pay him, and you can get triple damages. So, that couple $1,000s that they didn't pay him for that week's worth of work can crank up pretty quickly, especially if it's maybe 5 guys that didn't get paid, So, the labor laws still apply whether they have work authorization or not. We do personal injury. They have access to courts, So if you know better than me what that code article is, but if somebody is damaged by no fault of their own, they have the recourse and they can use the courts for that. So we've represented many undocumented people in
because people are people, right?
People are people,
and people got hurt by the fault of someone else, and they still should have rights to recover for their injuries.
Exactly. And courts is what makes things civil, right? It's the reason you can go to a court. The importance of being able to go to a court is so somebody doesn't be like, you know what, I'm going to go get that guy to pay for my damages. How's that going to turn out? Who are you messing with, and who's the person that's going to go? So, us attorneys, whether people like to hear this or not, we have a very important job. If they did not have access to courts, people in general don't have access to courts, how are they going to get compensated for their loss that was not their fault of their own? So
anarchy, chaos.
So,
right.
It's a good policy that non-citizens, whether you're lawfully here or not, has access to courts.
That's an excellent point. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah. And
if
somebody's a non-citizen and we have a personal injury case, does it affect the case? Absolutely. We can't bring a claim for maybe lost wages, future wages, or it severely affects the claim of future wages if the person is here working illegally. So I don't want it. So they have access to court, but there are things you have to take into consideration when you're representing a non-citizen, even if the non-citizen is here lawfully. Maybe it's somebody here. I mentioned the H-1B visa. That visa is going to end next year. Maybe that person has good wages. Maybe it's a researcher at LSU. So what's the future wages on that?
It's hard to speculate. It's hard to nail that down because
that's exactly it.
If I'm the defense lawyer, I'm saying, well, they're only here for a year.
Right. And what that researcher is going to say is like, yeah, but I'm going to find another, visa. I'm going to be here, but now I can't work because of you. So that it does come into consideration, and there are things you have to think about as opposed to representing somebody who's a U.S. citizen. Now, in trials, it's been fairly upheld. If somebody's here unlawfully, that's not. It's supposed to be inadmissible. But the reality is that the jury is going to sit there and wonder, what's this person's immigration status? So we have one right now where we are spending a lot of time thinking about how to present that. He's actually a very well-spoken client. He's a great client. But, you know, they're going to see that he was ticketed for no driver's license. So right away, that's going to be what, you know, besides the fact of his Hispanic appearance and things like that, that's going to trigger the jury to know, or at least speculate, that he's here without papers. So our question is, he has severe damages. He's doing a spinal cord stimulator right now, but how much are they going to discount the claim? And maybe they won't. I don't know. But, it's things you have to think about when you're representing a non-citizen.
I can imagine. However, hot off the presses, I know of a recent jury verdict that was substantial for some non-citizens. And my thought process is, I think the world is changing at a rapid rate. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people understand the workforce, the changing workforce, and how difficult it has been to get workers since COVID.
Yeah.
And with inflation and cost rising, we understand that non-citizens perform a very essential task in our daily lives and make our lives somewhat easier.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're 100% right. And I also think the great thing about a trial is you get to present this person. I was talking with you just a few minutes ago about, you know, the scare tactics of showing people crossing the border and saying, no, that person's not being interviewed. That person's not being interviewed and saying, I'm trying to flee my country. I'm doing this to help my kids. They may have come here unlawfully, but there's usually a noble cause or noble reason why. The good thing about a trial is a lot of people will see that and it scares them. But in the trial, you get to tell the story about the person. I mean, that's what a trial is, a story. And when somebody walks in with the idea that those people are scary, and then they hear him talk and they see him, it's not those people, he becomes a person. And then, you know, like what you said, they kind of start to understand. And so that's...
It's a person trying to live the American dream.
Exactly.
Right. Or fleeing violence and famine and poverty and trying to make a better life for him and his wife and his 3 children.
Exactly. I mean, what do I do every day? I go to work because I have a wife and kids and family that I want to support. So what's the difference between me and that person? And I think people can put themselves in their shoes and be like, well, they're doing the same thing as me, you know? So trials are good because it is a way to tell the story and that make this person become a person. He's not the drug runner. He's not this, you know, that they might have thought coming into there.
That's interesting. So you represent people from all around the world. Yep. Where are most of your clients from? Or do you have a majority?
I would actually say that's a good question. I think in this area, that would be New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Lafayette. I would guess that the majority of Hispanics are from Honduras, with Mexico being second. So I think naturally with that, probably the majority of my clients are from Honduras. But with that said, I have clients either from or around the world. So
why is that? Why Honduras?
You know, there's a joke in Honduras that what is the second biggest city of Honduras? Do you know? The joke is Kenner. So I don't know why that is. One day I'll find.
Wait, is that a joke in
Honduras? Oh, yeah, they know. Yeah.
So they know.
Yeah, and if you go to Kenner, you'll see why. And I don't know why, but I was born in Honduras and I grew up in the Kenner area. So, I don't know what's up with that, but
I saw the 504 number. I was wondering if it was New Orleans proper or, but that makes
Kenner,
sense.
bro.
Kenner.
Yeah, I was about to say, you got Honduran Kenner bras?
Yeah, bunch of Kenner bras. Yeah,
Woody, have you seen 90 Day Fiance?
I have.
Yeah, it's on TLC, I believe. So Guy has a girlfriend in Peru. How does he go about getting her to the States?
All right. So the first thing they need to do is call me, because there's a couple things that I need to know. So that way, when we start this process, I can prove this to immigration. So what I'm going to want to know for a fiance visa, one of the requirements is you have to be a U.S. citizen. So somebody that's a permanent resident can't petition for a fiance. A wife, yes, but not a fiance. So many people meet now on apps. So it's common to meet somebody through, in another country. These apps don't have any barriers, or borders. So one of the requirements is you have to be a U.S. citizen. Second, we have to show that y'all have met in person within the last 2 years. So if you've only done web chats, if you've only done FaceTime, it's not going to work. You're going to have to make a trip to Peru to visit her. And then the last thing we have to prove, we have two more things, that you're legally able to marry, because they call it 90-day fiance, because after she comes to the U.S., you have to get married within 90 days. So that's where the term 90-day fiance comes. So you have to show that you can legally marry. So what that means is, are you divorced? Or if you were married before, are you now divorced? And then the last thing is you have to prove that they actually have a good faith relationship. So, one cannot just meet somebody just one time and come back and marry. Or if they do, we're going to need a lot of evidence of that relationship, which usually comes in the form of screenshots of chats. They traveled together, things like that.
And then the lawyer, you, takes this information and brings it before whom?
So we're packaging that up, and we are going to file that evidence along with an application to USCIS, which is the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. And if they are satisfied of those things, that you're a U.S. citizen, that y'all have a good faith relationship, y'all have met in person within the last 2 years, and both of y'all are legally able to marry, they're going to approve the fiancé petition. Then they're going to send that petition to the U.S. Embassy in Peru, and she's going to have to go and apply for the actual visa. The visa is what allows her to enter the United States. So in this case, a fiancé visa. But that serves as another security check. They're going to do a background check on her. They're going to, they're gathering all her information. So once she enters, she has to get married within 90 days to the person that petitioned her. So then after that, she can apply for her green card.
And how long do they have to be married?
So they will enter, she'll be a fiance, and they have to get married within 90 days. And typically, I have their green card application the day that they're married, ready to go. Can
it be revoked?
It can. Again, when they apply for their green card, after entry, they're going to want to see continuing evidence of a good faith relationship. So think about if you meet your girl in Peru, I don't know what the apps are right now, but on one of these dating apps.
No, and it's not my girl. This is hypothetical.
This U.S. citizen meets this person in Peru, falls in love. He wants to bring her here. They might not have that much together yet. Like I said, you're going to screenshot the pictures when they're in Peru together. Maybe they did a little traveling, all their, screenshot the chats. But once they get here, immigration expects them to live a life as a married couple. And so they're going to expect them, at the very least, they have to live together. They want to see assets are commingled. Now that she's here, is she going to be on your car insurance? So they're going to want to see like the two names on the car insurance. Wow. She's going to get a driver's license. Does the addresses match on the driver's license?
They don't cover all this in the show.
No. Well,
this is quite the process.
It's a process. It's a process, and they will do continued background checks. So they get vetted quite nicely, for sure. So if you have somebody coming in the United States lawfully, you can be sure that the government knows much more about that person than the government knows about you, who was just born here and grew up and never had to subject yourself to those kinds of security checks and background checks.
Listening to you talk about it, I'm filled with gratitude that I actually grew up here.
Yeah.
Like, does the average American citizen know how exclusive of a club that they're in?
I think most of us take it for granted, but it is a blessing for sure to have been born in the United States and to have the opportunities that we do.
How would you fix the immigration problem?
All right. They're not going to like to hear this, all right? Everybody talks about building a wall or an amnesty. The way to fix illegal immigration is more visas, more temporary work visas. The problem right now is there's not enough work visas. I mean, Congress allots maybe 60,000 H-1B visas. There's not enough work visas to be given out. So what that is forcing is somebody who is poor and in Honduras and they need to provide for their family. If they cannot get that work visa, they're coming to work illegally. If there was a temporary work visa available, allowing somebody to come to do the jobs that, frankly, other people here don't want to do, and they stay for however long they need to stay. I mean, it depends usually on the type of job. Like farmers come in, maybe 9 months out the year. But if they come in temporarily and are able to go back, that will 100% fix, I would venture to say, 90% of illegal immigration. There would be no reason to come here illegally if there was some kind of route. And I'm not even saying a permanent route to come here. But if they have a temporary route to come to the United States, work for their family, which is what you do, I do, everybody in this room does, and then they can go back, nobody would have a reason to come here illegally.
And what would that fix?
That would fix illegal immigration. There would just,
what's the benefit to America or society by providing more visas?
So when somebody comes here with a visa, that person has subjected themselves to many background checks. They know where that person is. So now we have somebody here that's essentially being held accountable by the fact that they were granted this visa. They're told when they can leave. It makes the country safer because we know who this person is. This person has been subjected to many background checks. This person now has a social security number. So when he's getting paid, he's not getting paid in cash. He's getting paid a paycheck. Taxes are being withheld from that paycheck. That person is going to be required to file the annual federal taxes. So more money goes in the economy. And that's not even talking about the money going into the economy from the taxes, but that's not even talking about the filing fees that they have to pay to the government to produce these visas. So it's a win-win for just about everybody, and that would fix illegal immigration. That would put human smugglers out of business. The coyotes, who are the people that somebody who's coming here illegally, they pay a smuggler. They call them coyotes. That would put them out of the business. That would reduce the cartels. The cartel in northern Mexico, they're making more money now controlling the flow of migrants than they are through drugs. So it would reduce their, I don't know how you say it, but it would
reduce the demand,
right,
and therefore drop the price.
Drop the price and put them essentially out of business, and that's kind of a group you want to put out of business.
Have you spoken to any people who came to the States through the smuggling program or coyotes or any of that?
Yeah, a lot of our practice is we help people who've come to the United States without papers, and typically now, if somebody's come to the United States without papers, they're probably applying for asylum. They're saying that they want protection from their country for whatever reason. We also have a lot of clients that they might have entered 10, 15 years ago, and they get pulled over and they call Border Patrol and they get detained by immigration. Well, now this person has, a U.S. citizen child, maybe 2 or 3, probably a business, is working. Over 10 years, you're going to put some roots down. And one of the things we do is we apply for, in the immigration court, there exists some defenses against a deportation, like cancellation of removal. If I could tell the immigration judge he has more than 10 years here, he has U.S. citizen children, those children are going to suffer exceptional and extreme hardship if this person can't stay here and the person doesn't have a criminal record, the immigration judge can cancel that deportation and gives them residency, essentially. But that's somebody that entered illegally, 10 to 15 years ago.
So you've handled ICE detention hearings?
We do a lot of ICE detention hearings.
Is it still as prominent as it was? I remember at one time they locked it up where anytime someone would be arrested for a traffic ticket, OWI, whatever, it was an automatic ICE detention, no bond.
So when somebody is arrested, say by the police for whatever, say littering, that person doesn't have any status here, maybe entered illegally, again, 15 years ago, ICE is going to put an ICE hold on that person. And whenever they get out of jail, whether that be paying for the bond, the Lafayette, parish prison, or they complete their case, however that is, case is dismissed, they plead guilty, they do their time, that ICE hold holds them there, and ICE will come within 48 hours, and then they'll be detained by immigration, and we get called from the family members because we try to get him out under an immigration bond. So it's a second set of bonds that this person is going to have to pay if they want to be out, and the immigration bonds can be significantly higher. The bond amount will depend on the person. That's where we talked about a trial earlier, presenting this person as a person. The immigration judge considers, are they a flight risk? What ties they have to the community? Are they a danger to the community? And so,
how do you do that? How do you prove all that when someone is actually detained? Like a family member contacts your firm and says, my uncle or dad is detained, help him out.
That's exactly what happens.
And so you have to fill the story. You have to build that story through the family, from the family. Like, how does that work?
That's exactly how it works. Is usually in that situation, we're contacted by the wife, nephew, son, and once we're hired, we send a questionnaire out so we can, and the family member fills it out for them. We send a checklist of documents out. We try to learn who this person is so we can present that. What we're usually looking for is, ties to the community. What family do they have here? How many children do they have? If there's anything remarkable, like does any of the children have an illness that, they need him back? Does he have a business? Does he own property? Even trucks, tools. Frankly, if somebody's been here for 15 years and hasn't been arrested before, they're probably not going to be arrested again. They've shown that they're not a habitual criminal offender. So those are the kind of things that we're looking to present.
In fact, those people are probably already walking on eggshells to avoid any interaction with the police.
Very much so, yeah.
So is a big part of your practice representing people that have been detained by ICE?
Yeah, I'd say a fourth of it, yeah.
Wow. So question I have, you have a huge practice. You have 9 lawyers. You're probably the biggest immigration operation in the state of Louisiana. How far are we from the nearest border? I mean, we're pretty far, right?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be the Texas border, 100 miles, say,
How does someone in Louisiana have such a huge immigration practice? Well,
the story of the immigrant is that people come to the United States and set down roots. It was over 15 years ago or so that, an example is Hurricane Katrina came and a whole city, a whole Gulf Coast needed to be rebuilt. And I can assure you that in that time, immigration detention was down because they needed those people to rebuild New Orleans and the Gulf Coast, and they did.
We're talking tens of thousands of immigrants probably, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking hundreds.
Correct. No, tens of thousands. And so what do people do? Again, people put down roots. And so I don't think it's necessarily about where you are. In the United States, there always will be an immigrant population. I was talking to a friend of mine that lives in Chicago, so that's the Midwest, And I asked him what's the nationality of people that he represents more than anything, and he told me Polish people. So just, what's the story of how many Polish people ended up in the Midwest of the United States? I don't know what that is, but every immigrant has their story, and even, certain countries have their story of how they ended up here. Why is the fisherman Eastern European or Vietnamese? It's just kind of how it happens.
So Hispanic is the most predominant, I guess, immigrant in Louisiana.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot more Hispanic population just in my lifetime. I remember going to Texas as a kid, and I would see a lot of Hispanics. Wouldn't see it in Louisiana. Yeah. That has changed. Yeah, and the food options have changed. The grocery stores have changed, right?
But for the better. You have more options now.
Absolutely.
And there's definitely a larger Hispanic population here since we've been growing up. But with that said, there is a population of just about everybody here. Maybe sometimes the Hispanics may stand out a little bit more. But, I mean, they have Russians, people from Portugal, England, name the country, and they're here.
Yeah, you're looking at one of the most cultural diverse places in America.
Right.
In Louisiana, right? In New Orleans, and obviously the Acadian population here in Lafayette. That's a very unique population, right?
Absolutely.
It's pretty interesting.
What's the percentage of clients that you take on who are non-English speakers, and does that play a role in the immigration process?
Well, I'll say I speak Spanish, but of the 9 lawyers that we have, I think only 3 speak Spanish. So what is the question is how many of our clients don't speak English, and I'd say 50%. But with that said, because I speak Spanish, generally if a client wants to come talk to me, we can just talk. But what I find with other languages such as Arabic, where there's going to be less availability for us to have an interpreter, they know that and they will bring their own interpreter. So I've never found language to be any barrier, even if it's for a non-Spanish speaker.
So to become a U.S. citizen, do you have to speak and write in English?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Yeah, most people don't realize that one of the requirements to become a U.S. citizen is that you have to demonstrate that you can speak, read, and write English. So on top of the interview, every citizenship application requires there be an interview. So you're going to be interviewed by an immigration officer. The interview will be in English. They're going to go through your application in English. They ask some hard questions just from your application, and they're then going to give the applicant a phrase, and they have to be able to read it. And then they're going to say, okay, write down this phrase, and they're going to say a phrase, and they have to show that they can write it. And then there's a civics exam, and most U.S. citizens could not pass the civics exam, but again, that will be in English.
What type of questions are on the civics exam?
Ooh, all right. Let's see if I can remember.
Carter, can you pull that up?
Yeah, I got some right here. I can't pull it up on the screen because then I'll give you the answers, but I can give you a couple of quizzes.
All right, Woody, shout it out.
All right,
save me, please.
All right, let's go with the 4th question they have here. The U.S. Constitution starts with the words "We the people." We the people. What does "We the people" mean?
That's a vague question. We the people, the citizens, U.S. citizens, right?
Yeah, the answers that it gives you are self-government, popular sovereignty, consent of the governed, people should govern themselves, example of social contract.
Help me. I mean, that is not easy.
Yeah, I don't know that. I've heard these exams given many times. Luckily, they don't test me.
The people governed, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I think what he was reading is the potential answers.
Right. Yeah. Those are all the potential. Those are all the potential answers.
I got it.
Another one would be, what part of the federal government writes laws?
Legislator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Then they give you Congress or legislative branch. So there's a few.
But he's a lawyer, so
Yeah, that's true. He's a.
I mean, would Would 9 out of 10
Okay.
people get that right? I don't think so. I think it's 50-50.
Oh, wow. It's got like name your U.S. representative. So
Yeah.
is that dependent on the state that you're in?
Well, so the congressperson depends on your district, or another one is name your name a U.S. senator. Another one's name the governor of the state you're in. I'm trying to think, but they'll. One of them is, can you name the Speaker of the House? You know, it's just things I don't think most people would know. I mean, they definitely have to practice. And we took high school civics. I think most of us took high school civics. You know, they did not, so they definitely had to practice. They didn't just wing that one when they go to their interview.
Are there manuals for people to study?
Yeah, and actually, what he's reading off the manual. You can study. A lot of my clients I hear listen to podcasts, like when they're driving to work. They can, I think it used to be CDs. So there's audio things. There's like what he found online is a guide. And actually, when they go and give their fingerprints, so they do another security check. They're going to take their fingerprints and do a background check. Usually USCIS will give them a little manual, little study guide too. So they do have the materials to learn it.
So you're like, what your firm is doing is organizing all their paperwork and getting them ready to take this interview and test.
Yep. I'll go with them a lot of times. I'll do
Really?
a practice interview with them because, I tell them this is going to be your only naturalization interview, but I've sat in hundreds or thousands, so I know how it's supposed to go. I know how they go. I'll do a practice exam with them. I'll have them write something in English. We'll practice in English. And then if there's any, a lot of people will hire us too, if there's any maybe issue that they had, maybe they were arrested at one time for something. So how is this going to be handled in the interview? Maybe somebody owes some taxes. How do we handle that in the interview? So I'm looking for, on top of preparing them, giving them the study guides, practicing with them, showing them how it's going to be. I'm also looking to see, are there any potential problems? Because I've done this 100 times. I've seen it. This is your first time. I don't want them walking into a trap, so to speak. So
you're helping people obtain visas. You're helping them get citizenship.
Yep.
You're helping businesses bring talent. You're helping people with ICE detentions. You're helping people that are arrested for any other offense that may have citizenship issues, and you're helping people in personal injury cases.
Yep.
Is there anything I forgot? I mean, that seems like a lot.
Criminal defense. What I liked what you just said is that we're helping people. At the end of the day, one of the ways that I sleep well at night is knowing that I tried to help somebody or a business or some kind of entity today.
Where can people find you, Woody?
They can find me on Instagram, Lawyer Woody. The Scott Law Firm is our Facebook page, and pwscottlaw.com is our domain name. So we're pretty active. You can go on our website. We have somebody that'll chat with you. You can chat with us through Instagram. You can chat with us through Messenger. And as a matter of fact, we have somebody that will answer the phone 24 hours a day. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas, somebody's going to answer the phones. And so if somebody wanted to call us, 225-400-9976, or text us there.
Awesome, man. You've been great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Hey, it would mean the world to me if you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a 5-star review. It helps keep the show free, and it helps us book better guests to provide more valuable content to you. None of the opinions expressed by my guests are that of my own, and nothing we talked about creates an attorney-client relationship or could be construed as legal advice. Hope you enjoy the show.